when we get to the context, we can just say, we talked about this beforehand. We don't need it for the show,
Right,
right?
right. We'll leave our listeners in the dark. That's
Yeah.
good podcasting there.
Mhm.
Rhyme or free, it doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry.
Good day, and welcome to My Bad Poetry, a podcast where we take a deep dive into our poems from youth, yesteryear, or even yesterday, always asking the question, why in the world did I write this? I'm Aaron.
And I'm Dave.
And today we kick off season 6 with a guest from DC, an author of the poetry collection How to Bury a Boy at Sea, which reckons with the trauma of child sex abuse from a male perspective, and whose poetry has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, has appeared in or is forthcoming in so many journals, including the Atlanta Review, the South Dakota Review, Atticus Review, The Shore, and others. He also has earned his first skull from Had with a poem titled, I'll Miss Your Farts. Phil Goldstein, welcome to My Bad Poetry.
Very glad to be here. Thank you guys for the intro. I love that. Love that Had published that poem, by the way.
Yeah,
that's a good pull. I mean, it's nice to know that you've really got a lot of levity in your work, you know? It's just joy and hope and...
Yeah, well, we can talk about that poem maybe if we have some
if we
time.
have time. I didn't know, and I'm glad you added this. That was your first skull?
Yeah.
Wow. So
I had tried to get into Had. I think it was 15 times before that. So definitely, diligently tried, and Aaron Birch saw fit to bless I'll Miss Your Farts.
Now, we should explain to our dear listeners what earning a skull from Had means.
Yeah, explain it to our listeners, Aaron, because I know. I've heard that as a concept before, and I'm not stupid. So yeah, explain it to our listeners.
So there's a publishing place called Had, Had is short for...
Hobart After Dark.
Okay.
Because it grew out of Hobart.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to explain? They are kind of exclusive in their windows of opportunity to submit.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they always have random submission calls, which are usually announced on X, formerly Twitter, and or sent to you via email. And sometimes they'll say, we're going to open for submissions at 9 a.m. Eastern on this day. And once we get 150 submissions, the window is going to close. And so, you got to get your submission ready, because sometimes it closes in less than a minute, which is crazy. And then other times they'll leave the window open for, a period of time, a couple of hours or so. And sometimes, they have guest editors who are going through the submissions. And so, yeah, I've been wanting to get in there for a long time, and earlier this year got in. So it's pretty cool.
Congrats. That's awesome.
And you get to, when you get a poem accepted through Had, it's earning a skull.
Right, because their logo is this giant pile of skulls. And so it's called Earning a Skull. And so there's some people who have 5 of them. I kind of like to think of that as have you guys ever seen Predator?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The trophies.
Predator's got his trophy of skulls that he's got,
Well, is there anything else in the intro that we might have missed that you want to highlight, or?
Well, as context for the discussion that we're likely to have, I mean, I've been writing poetry since I was in 7th grade or so. And obviously a lot of that poetry from the beginning of my time as a writer of it is really bad. At least in looking back on it. I was actually going through my Google Drive, where, about a decade ago, I managed to upload all these documents from the old family computer before it went kaput. And that housed a lot of the stuff that I had written from middle school and high school. And so, yeah, it's very interesting to look at the origins of yourself as a writer. I kind of wonder if you look at a famous writer, I don't know, a Hemingway or Sylvia Plath or somebody like that. I wonder if they had the ability to go back and like preserve the things that they had written when they were like 13, at a time when they're like this like very established, celebrated writer. I wonder what they would have found.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, Dave, do you want to bring us into the realm of bad poetry with your hastily written poem for the week?
Yep. This is a beautiful poem called What's in a Name? A Lot, apparently. A flamboyance of flamingos, a murder of crows, a bloat of hippopotamuses, a paddling of ducklings in a row, a cackle of hyenas, a bouquet of lovely pheasants, a wisdom of wombats, a quiver of cobras, not so pleasant.
I like it.
No.
It's like a list poem.
Thank you.
That's a genre, right? A list poem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with something really clever for the beginning of this season, and then I had zero clues as to what to write, and I was busy setting out flamingos for a community fundraiser.
Ah.
So, thank you to poet helper Google, who could tell me what collective nouns are for random animals.
There you go. Yeah.
No.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else to say about that.
It's genius. It's beautiful. You think I deserve at least 2 or 3 skulls for it? Whatever. It's up to you guys.
I did like the bouquet of pheasants. Is that what? I don't think I've.
Yeah, a bouquet of pheasants.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
That's lovely. That was nice.
Yeah.
I still think my favorite is a flamboyance of flamingos.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
good.
That's good.
That is good.
I found out because I included it in a poem that got published last year. Do you know what a group of ravens is called?
A conspiracy. Or am I wrong?
It might be. I'm not sure about that because I thought that it was a unkindness. An unkindness
you're right.
of ravens.
Really?
You're right. Because it's a murder of crows, an unkindness of ravens, and there's a conspiracy of...
Let's see.
Is it owls?
No, it's a parliament of owls.
A group of lemurs is called a conspiracy.
That makes me so happy.
That's what Google says.
Why did the crows and ravens get such a bad rap? I mean...
Because they will kill you, Aaron. They will kill you.
They're smart birds. I mean...
They are.
Yeah. Well,
terrifying.
If ever we were to have a collective noun, a group of people, it probably means that one would be popular, right?
I really thought you were going to say like a garbage of poets or something, but that works too.
No, I was trying to get us to this first poem here, and I nailed it. Well, here we go. You bring for us today 3 poems from your old Google Drive, salvaged from the old family computer. And the first one here is titled Popular. So if you want to read for us this offering, then we'll dive in.
Sure. Popular. So it is said that you have to be in to surround yourself with invisible friends. To be the superstar and not care if you're inside out and not all there. To be engulfed and drowned in what is sometimes a sea of lies. Maybe you don't pay much attention to the despised. Knowing what to wear and knowing what to do may somehow be the downfall of you. Being not so cool and being not so known feels like silent laughter everywhere you go. People believe so much in what they see and hear. When it gets back to you, you just want to disappear. You have so many fears to contemplate. Rejection, your look are not all what's at stake. None of it matters with your character as a shield. Have your personality's power make their voices yield. Popular is a term lightly taken. If you're positive you are, you might be mistaken.
Lovely.
Wow. You said you wrote this in the 7th grade?
Yeah.
You're a monster.
I have to say, I mean, I could see this being an embarrassing bad poem for like a college student trying to get into something. A seventh grader writing this? I'm impressed.
That's not bad.
I'm
I
impressed.
mean, I think that the context will definitely like help, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
explain the poem.
Yeah, give us some background to this
All right,
this work.
so I want to take you back in time to where we're talking about here. So this is 1999, 2000, that era. Picture young Bill Goldstein with a really bad center part late 90s
Okay.
haircut.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I am very, very much on the short end of the spectrum. I'm probably like one of the shortest, if not the shortest boys in the grade. I'm probably like 4'11", 5
Okay.
nothing.
Okay.
'Cause, I didn't go through like a growth spurt until like freshman year of high school. And I don't know, I was like nerdy, I was like very bookish, not athletic. I think that seventh grade, I did try out and like do cross country running for a
Whoop
little
whoop.
bit, but I was absolutely terrible at it. Um, and so I felt very unpopular. I felt very, I don't know, adrift in part because like, you go from like elementary school to middle school and you have these like five elementary schools in the district flowing into this middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of kids who like know kids who went to other elementary schools because they like did soccer together
Sure.
or like they've been going to camp together since they were like 5 or whatever it is. And so like not only are you now in this like bigger sea of kids, but like like I had like friends who I had made in elementary school. I had like 3 or 4 like really close friends, but I was definitely not one of like the cool kids. I was
Sure.
not an athlete. And so, I wrote this poem, I think, from a place of like, ah, I don't want to say necessarily like resentment, but
Hmm.
definitely from a place of feeling like defensive and kind of like I wrote it from a place maybe I'm pretty sure that I had like asked out some like really popular girl and she was like
Mm-hmm.
no. uh Funnily enough, I'm actually meeting that same person in DC next week. She's going to be in town for work. We like reconnected, I don't know, a year or two ago on Instagram. And like now, like everything's totally cool. Like,
Yeah.
and like we like knew each other all up until, high school. But yeah, I don't know. I was just like definitely not in the in crowd. And so that's where this poem comes from.
Sure. Sure.
I love that as a concept because like the difference between the popular kids in the school, but also like I was super popular in high school, as you can tell. I was a very cool kid because I was one of the coolest of the band geeks.
Nice.
And so I kind of love the like I was popular amongst a very very specific crowd. So I appreciate the it's not anger, it's not frustration, but it's definitely some annoyance at how popularity worked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I was not wearing the coolest clothes. My clothes were from like, I don't know, Old Navy. I
That wasn't the
was
popular brand?
I feel like I don't know where you guys grew up. I grew up in suburban New York. And I
Ah,
feel like even by then, like cool kids were starting to wear like Abercrombie
sure,
and,
sure. Yeah, no, in Ohio it took a while for the popularity to get from the coast. So, yeah.
No, the
so
Walmart fashion, that's the best brand, right?
It was the only store in town. You had to drive to Piqua to get to the mall. So I from the perspective of kind of resentment or defensiveness, you get that at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confused at first with the you surround yourself with invisible friends, but now that line makes sense. In that it's more, are you trying to get at like superficial friends, or it's just
Yeah, like that, they're both sort of like superficial and like, will kind of like turn on you, and
Mhm.
like basically, they'll disappear as your friend. And I guess the message that I was going for here was that like the idea of popularity is this sort of very precarious state of a being. At least that's what I was trying to like convey as someone who was not popular, where it's kind of like, hey, like if you're not careful, you could wind yourself, you know, down here with the plebes.
Sure. Yeah. Oh wow. So let's get into a bit of the structure here.
Mhm.
It looks like you're trying to do a consistent rhyme scheme, and yet there are times in which you throw that out the window, or it's a near rhyme. Like
Yeah.
you kind of you got close. Contemplate and stake,
Hmm.
and then known and go.
Yeah.
Well, you just got to put that in the past tense, so then it'd be everywhere you have gone, right? Is that not?
Hmm.
I mean, look, I cannot claim sophistication, in my rhyme scheme abilities, whether it was a perfect match or not. I think that I was just like, I was really trying to kind of have these like two lines that, knocked into each other. And it's like, let's
Mhm.
just build on that. I
Sure.
mean, this clearly came from a time when, like many young poets, you assume that poetry has to rhyme to be
Hmm.
real poetry. And so, because as I said, I was going through the Google Drive, I would say like 80 to 85% of the poems written during this period are this like really bad forced rhyming, where it's like, that doesn't really make sense, but it rhymes.
It's good enough.
Hmm.
Did you write these poems privately, just for you in a journal, or were these written as like part of an assignment for like a seventh grade English class? Were these turned in?
Oh, no, 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 no,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no, 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 no,
I
no, no,
see
no,
the
no,
anxiety bubbling up as he says that.
no. No, I didn't write these for public consumption. I did in high school. I took a class, as this will tell you in like one sentence everything about me as a person. Growing up in high school, my sophomore year, as an elective, I took a poetry class that was primarily geared towards seniors who are kind of taking it as like a laugh class, as like,
Yeah.
Ah,
like their last semester, kind of like a Mickey Mouse elective
sure.
class.
Yeah.
But I was like this very, precocious writer who was starting to fancy himself, a poet. And so in that class, you had to read your poems aloud, once a week in front of the whole class. And so that's when I started getting more comfortable kind of sharing things with the world.
Fascinating.
Well, and once you started reading your poetry out loud, that's when you started finding that popularity, right?
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember, so this was the spring of 2003. So the Iraq War was like about to start.
Hmm.
And I remember I wrote this very like scorching anti-war poem because like my parents were liberals. I was starting to realize that I'm a liberal. I was like very against the war from the beginning. And I read this poem aloud in class. And at the end of it, I very distinctly remember somebody saying, so like, is like that about like the war and stuff. And I remember responding very distinctly. I looked at that person. I can't remember who it was, but I remember I looked at that person like straight in the eye and I was like, yeah, and stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
very clearly, rocketing up the popularity charts.
That's how you win people over. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say, this final line here, this little couplet, popular is a term lightly taken. If you're positive you are, you might be mistaken. That is a fun little lick.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned right before we started recording that Snows of Tears was influenced kind of post 9/11.
Yeah, yeah.
And so kind of jumping off the 2003 beginning of the Iraq war thing, should we pivot into Snows of Tears?
Sure. Snows of Tears. As autumn fades to winter, as gold fades to black, death and despair drop their calling cards on my soul's open door, ravaging and mangling the weakened spirit within. First terror, then shock and grief. No words, only pain that seeps into my veins and stays there until a reassuring voice calms the wound that is nowhere, everywhere, in the autumn snows of tears.
Can I ask?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron and I are both super cool pop punk people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This does not feel pop punk, but I listen to a decent amount of metal and some screaming metal. Is that where this is coming from, or is this more just like, poetry?
I mean, I want to say it's probably more the latter. I don't know what you guys were into in high school in terms of music, but this poem predated me getting into a certain genre of music. But like for most of high school, I was really into bands like Coheed and Cambria, Thursday, Thrice.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
I haven't thought Thrice in years.
and so like it's interesting. I feel like this is a poem that like could in theory be like set to music like that and like
Yep.
kind of either like sung in like the Coheed and Cambria falsetto or like screamed, in that kind of genre. But no, this was more just kind of yeah, I wrote this poem probably in like October or November of 2001. Obviously, 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened on my fourth day of high school,
Oh, geez.
which was crazy. And, as I said, I grew up in suburban New York and I had friends whose parents worked in the World Trade Center who were fine. I think that one of them or both of them, like they were supposed to have a meeting there and then they like didn't go to the meeting for some reason. I had another friend whose uncle was a firefighter who died. And so, yeah, that was like very heavy in the air. And then there was this girl, her name is Emily. She was not a friend, but she was daughter of these people who were kind of like pillars of like the synagogue that we went to. And there had been a pep rally in the fall every year. And, she was a senior. I guess like a bunch of them had been drinking and they were either going to school or coming from school. And there was a car accident, just drinking, and she died. And so, yeah, I wrote this poem kind of in the aftermath of those two things. And it was just a really kind of like bewildering, upset time, and it was a really, really shitty fall. And yeah, just, trying to capture that, that feeling.
So, I mean, with that heavy of a context, my question is, why bring it to my bed poetry? What about this? I mean, the context is meaningful. There's a lot of raw emotions being expressed for a high schooler trying to understand tragedy. on a national and a personal level, or at least a community level.
Mm-hmm.
What about this poem makes you cringe?
I mean, the fact that like so many of the lines of the poem are like two words, or just like the fact that, and again, this is like the like you know the exact format that it was written in. The fact that like every line is capitalized in the beginning, the fact that like some of the like syntax doesn't really make any sense. I don't know. I like it as a poem still. It's just like clearly a poem that was written by somebody who like didn't know exactly how to structure a poem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that ultimate question that Dave and I always come back to. It's like, how does one figure out a line break? Because this is not it.
Yeah, no. Like, why does the line break after souls of on my souls line break open door? Like, I can't tell you why I did that.
and and then the punctuation choices alongside that, it just
Yeah.
like sometimes it feels like it breaks up a sentence, like no words, period,
Right.
only pain, line break, that seeps into my veins and
Right.
stays there. I mean, like we get this incredible run-on sentence from only pain all the way down to tears. And I know that
Right.
like the syntax of poetry, you don't always look for the commas or the periods, but in this case, the choice of those things are just all over the place.
Yeah, and I could not for the life of me tell you what the intentionality was behind it. I don't think that there really was any. Like if I was looking at this poem again today, I would be like, no words, comma, only pain that seeps, line break, like that would make a lot more sense than what is actually there on the page, which is no words, period, line break, only pain, line break that seeps into my veins, comma.
Line break.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, I was seeing like the first two lines start with the letter A.
Yeah,
the
I was going to bring
two,
this
or
up
the,
too.
Yeah, so AADDOO RTFT.
Yeah.
I thought there was a pattern that was established, and I'm like, oh no, that was just
no pattern.
Yeah, and your choice to capitalize every first line draws your eye to that immediately. So
Yeah.
If Dave wasn't going to mention it, that was my next go-to thing. And it falls apart. And one could argue the intentionality of such a pattern being established and then broken within the end of the poem to show tragedy and despair.
You are giving ninth grade Phil so much credit that he does not deserve.
We believe in ninth grade Phil.
Yeah.
I believe in ninth grade Phil too. I mean, it's just like that. Yeah, I don't know. I could not tell you. I think that where this all sort of came from was this idea of like gold fading to black. You guys and your writing. For me, a lot of my writing is very imagistic and starts with an image that I then tend to build things around, or like the image becomes a metaphor. And so yeah, for this it was like this idea of gold. It's the sort of bright light of autumn, and then black, black smoke, funeral black, and that's kind of where it came from if I'm stepping back
Sure.
in time.
And yet you title it Snows of Tears. Do you remember where that image comes from? I mean, with the context in mind, I can see the news footage of the ash from the towers.
I think it was a combination of that, of leaves falling like snow, and obviously tears falling. And so I think it was also the fact that I wrote the poem as the fall was kind of starting to inch into winter. And so it was kind of like, we're we're ushering in this season of tears falling like snow. At least that's what I'm gonna say that I was doing,
Yeah,
which
we
seems
we believe in Phil.
semi-plausible.
We
I
believe
believe
in
in
ninth
ninth grade
grade
Phil.
Phil.
Yeah.
But my follow-up question to that is, and it kind of goes back to the syntax choices that you were making as a ninth grader with this poem. Why not Tears of Snow? Snows of Tears sounds stranger to me, at least.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It sure does. I don't know why. Maybe I thought that Snows of Tears sounded more poetic.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, Tears of Snow is equally poetic. Probably, you could probably do more with that phrase if you're using that syntax. But I don't know, man.
Actually, no. I think in the last line, it makes more sense your way around. In the autumn snows, so it's like that of tears.
Yeah.
You're kind of adding that snow that comes about late autumn. This year is a snow of tears. Okay, just needed the context of the poem there. That makes sense.
I think that if I had to go back, I might have retitled it just Autumn Snows of Tears. But
Ah,
I don't know. I think it would definitely like make a little bit more sense from the jump.
yeah,
No.
yeah. You could do something with this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to steal it all from you because I want to turn this into like an album where each line is a title for a song. I might have to combine
yeah.
a couple, but like, tell me On My Soul's Open Door is not a decent song title.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's a good one.
Or
there's quite a few in there.
The Weekend Spirit Within.
Yes.
Boom. That's the band name, I think.
Yeah. Only pain that seeps into my veins.
Yep.
Oh yeah. That has strong I write sins not tragedies.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
yeah, this feels like a Panic at the Disco. Just album list right here. Death and
Yeah.
Despair drop their calling cards. Yeah.
The wound that is nowhere everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe I was emo before emo,
there you go.
There you go.
You brought that trend from the coast inward. Because Autumn Snows of Tears also that just gives me MCR Helena vibes. I mean that's they're anyway. Well, we should get to this last speaking of autumn.
Yeah, I was gonna say as
so,
we watch the autumn snows, we hear of autumn's vow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna pause and say that like in looking back through this back catalog of poetry, like a good chunk of it has some allusion or direct mention of autumn, which is my favorite season, has been for clearly a long time. But like, oh gosh, so many autumn poems about trees and foliage, and that's that's kind of what this one is. So I'd be glad to read it.
Yes, please.
All right. It says Autumn's Vow. I see in your eyes the rising of the sun, glowing in October majesty. They make my heart feel so surreal. You shine in the colors of the season. I know that you're the only one who could do this to me. I didn't know that I could feel the way that I do right now. My heart is caving in, but not breaking. There's so much beauty in the world that I know, and you stand alone in my mind. You're the reason why I'm waking. If there was a way that I could demonstrate my love, that I would show to the world as a banner across the sky, written in the heavens across a purple sunset, declaring to the mountains that our connection can never die, whispering to the clouds that your soul I'll never forget. To this I proclaim forever, infinite tomorrows and here and now, hoping that as you read this, you will repeat this vow. I'm amazed that I could get through that. So, both because as I was reading it, I was editing it in the Google Docs to make sure that I filled in the words that were missing. But yeah, man, I, this is one of those that like, again, because there's like all of these autumn poems that kind of like blur together.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you where this necessarily came from or who it was written about. Clearly, it was written about somebody who I had a crush on,
Well, yeah.
but could not tell you who that person was or why I wanted their, something about them to be written as a banner across the sky, in the heavens, across a purple sunset. That's like three sky things in a row.
Yeah.
You had to make your point very clear.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely, if Autumn Snows and Tears is like a poem that is like, I don't know, for its time and context is halfway decent.
Mm-hmm.
This one is just not.
This is
This is really bad.
Yeah. Have you ever seen videos online of like hydraulic presses crushing things?
Oh, like that Apple commercial that everybody got really upset about?
Yeah. I'm just, subtlety is like a feather just gently wafting over, and this poem does feel a bit like a hydraulic press crushing. Like not very subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says the same thing like 5 ways. And you're basically wanting to skywrite for this mystery person.
Yeah. I clearly felt very strongly that I needed to both declare my feelings for them and that they should do the same.
They need to repeat this vow forever and
repeat
infinite.
The vow. Yeah.
And I love that you're sharing this poem with us and you can't remember who exactly this is about because you have in this last line of the first stanza, whispering to the clouds that your soul I'll never forget.
Yeah. Clearly they were somebody who, I mean, I'm going to just like chalk this one up like 95% to hormones.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's what most of these kind of piney poems come from. It's like all these emotions.
Yeah. If there could be a poem that was more piney or pining, I don't know what it would be.
This is up there. This is
yeah.
My heart is caving in, but not breaking.
And I also love how there were just these random moments of whoa, wait a minute. Never mind. Okay. There is a rhyme scheme through this whole thing.
Yeah, you didn't notice that?
No, I did. No, I didn't.
A-B-A-B?
A-B-A-B, and then the last one is A-A. Okay, I didn't really catch it until Sky and Die. But I wonder if it's because there's no rhythm at all. The line
there's absolutely no rhythm.
Yeah.
Like,
so
again, this is one of those poems that you could like definitely like pull apart and restructure, and it would make a little bit more sense or have a little bit more flow.
Yeah, but the lines were just so scattered as far as like syllable stress and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even catch the rhymes.
I mean, to be completely honest, I'm with you. I did not really think about it until you just said it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I am doing a little bit of an alternating here.
Sun, one, surreal feel, breaking, waking, no show. It's the whole thing. Sky, die, sunset, forget. Yeah, never would have caught that.
Mm-mm.
Well, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're not catching the rhyme, then it doesn't feel quite as forced as like when I write poetry.
But there's also like the reason why I think we didn't catch it is because there's some of these lines in here that like don't really make sense. Like the one that I think that I tripped over the most when I was reading it was, "There's so much beauty in the world that I know." That's just a line. It doesn't really make sense.
Well, yeah, because you force that line break. I guess to get to the rhyme of show, but then if you and again you're capitalizing every first letter of the line, which must have just been what you felt had to happen. There's so much beauty in the world I know, and you stand alone inside my mind. You're yeah, even with that follow-up thought, I suppose you're saying this person is more beautiful than anything else in the world and you know a lot of beauty.
It could be that the word that in that line was supposed to or should be than, but I don't even know if that would, I
Oh.
don't know if that would make it work either.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see it. I like how Aaron and I are harmonizing on that. Kinda.
Yeah,
Maybe.
You did.
I don't think that this one is particularly salvageable.
No,
No.
we've
I'm
lost.
sorry, but
we've
no.
lost faith in ninth grade Phil here.
Yeah. He was definitely a hit or miss kind of person.
Yeah, this was a swing and a miss. This.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I just I love the optimism of this final couplet.
Well, I'm just realizing now that this is a 14-line poem, and I want to say that additional context that could help this make a little bit more sense is that I think that I wrote this maybe in that poetry class or around
Ooh.
that time. So it was like, ooh, like I got introduced to the idea of sonnets, but clearly was not that great at executing. So
So this is a botched sonnet.
this is kind of like, a swing and a miss sonnet.
Okay,
Uh,
you're bringing back my faith in 10th grade. This is your sophomore attempt.
yeah, this was like sophomore slump of
Yeah, that's right.
poetry
Yeah.
writing.
Oh wow. Yeah. It would kind of make sense as far as the title goes, your context of loving autumn and that season. But if the person's name was Autumn, that would also
Right.
that would also make sense for me.
Yeah, I did not know anybody growing up whose name was Autumn, which is a lovely, wonderful
Yeah.
Yeah.
name. But no, alas.
Oh, we still have this mystery person who you will never forget, and all your connections will never die.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I can tell you definitively, it is not the person who I'm meeting this
Okay.
week who's in town.
Otherwise, that would be a little awkward. You could be like, I read a poem about you.
No. Not that person.
Oh wow. Oh. Well,
Lovely.
this is incredible. I think you've even in your bad poetry, you've shown us some range.
Well, that's good. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been a lovely start to season 6 here. And I don't know how to segue. But we do need to wrap up. We've kind of hit our hour. So before we let you go, Phil, we here at My Bed Poetry, we end each week with the words of a true poet. So would you be willing to read for us another one of your poems, one that you are in fact proud of?
Sure. I'll read you a poem that got published last year. It's not from my book, but will hopefully be a poem in my next book.
Nice.
And this was published in August of 2023 in the journal Atticus Review, and it is called An Alphabet of Longing. It's a abecedarian poem. An unkindness of ravens sings in the violet. All I have left is the sound of your voice, electronic. Anything I do is a pale wraith of what once was. Burning wood finds its purpose inside our home. Cellar doors latch shut, their bright green paint a hint of spring. Chrysanthemums bloom twice, growing in beauty. Death follows, dreamlike. Each glint of your eyes a symphony of light. Frozen walks we went on never seem painful. Ghosts sound lonesome in the attic. Haunt me, please, I dare you. I ate something today, don't worry. January has come, an endless blur of white and blue. Nights paw restlessly on the chessboard. Limestone slabs get warm from the wood we gathered long ago. Move backwards with me, please, I dare you. Naked, alone, the bathroom grows cold. Out here, the sky unfurls itself at night, paints the road in its darkness. Questions grow like mushrooms near tree roots. Rejoice, our friends say. You have so much to live for. Shadows cast spells among the eaves. Shock grows weary like a dog out too long. Sandals sit unused in a wicker basket, always winter. Slur of your name being spoken by anyone. Such is the way of all flesh, they say, to dust from fire. The ravens circle closer. Under the blankets, our two cats search for you fruitlessly. Violets used to sprout on the walkway, always winter. Why is disease so indiscriminate? You used to grow chrysanthemums. You'd like the January light growing in strength. You'd love it here. You'd love here. You'd love. You did.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke about how it parallels nicely with Dave's, but by the end of it, no, that was beautiful.
It just feels a little unfair that I wrote my genius poem, and then you had to share something like that. I just, whatever. Just had to one up me. That's fine, Phil.
I do have one nerdy follow-up question.
Sure.
Are you a fan of Tolkien?
I am, yeah.
Okay, because he snuck Cellar Door in there, and he said,
Yeah. And also a fan of Donnie Darko.
Yes, and that's where they referenced the Tolkien. Yep, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Phil, this has been a blast, and we're so grateful that you were able to come on and kick off season 6 with us.
No, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to plug, or?
No, people can go check out my work at philagoldstein.com, all one word. And I've got some poems that are coming out in a couple places in the next little bit. I got a poem coming out in South Dakota Review, and then another one coming out in Atlanta Review. And I'm just toiling away trying to make some progress on this next book. I've got about I would say like close to 2/3 of the poems that I want to write for written, but I haven't made a lot of progress recently. So I'm hoping to use the summer to kind of get the rest of the work done.
Do you want to give a snippet or a sneak peek at kind of the theme?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So very, very, very different from my first book, which was extremely autobiographical. If that was like 85-90% autobiographical, this one is going to be 85-90% non-autobiographical. I'm trying to think of it as kind of a novel in verse almost. And it's about this couple. You don't know their names, you don't know their genders, very different. One of them is kind of more of like a math, science, engineering type person. The other one, is a poet, grew up in this like very sort of free-spirited household in the Midwest. They meet in college, they fall in love, they like break up, they get back together, they get married, and then the partner, who's the poet, gets cancer and dies. And they had inherited this cabin in the woods in Minnesota from the partner who dies' like uncle. They'd gone there a bunch, and the partner who died had like grown up there a lot. And so the surviving partner kind of like in the months after the death retreats to that cabin and kind of is seeking this isolation. And
wow. Yeah. And if what you read for us at the end there is a snippet of something that could be in that collection, that sounds incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm trying really hard to like not have it be a book of like total downers.
This has been My Bad Poetry.
Now go write some of your own bad poetry.
Cellar Door was you gotta. Tolkien said that Cellar Door is the most beautiful 2-word phrase because of how it feels on the mouth or something like that. But
I was going for, is it poison? Lock the cellar door and baby talk dirty to me. No. I'm a very cool person.
Rhyme free doesn't matter to me.